Hey y'all, it's Kim again. So remember last week I went through this article. It says how the White House functioned with the diminished Biden in charge. And then I found a few more articles. These are all from the Wall Street Journal, and it talks about notable and quotable Schumer on Biden's cognitive abilities. I'll play y'all a clip here in a second with Kristen Welker, I think on NBC. And then another one that's called Who Covered Up Biden's Decline and Why? Anyway, these people are such liars. And they covered up all this stuff for so long. Remember, they kept saying he was sharp as a tack, sharp as a tack. Let's see. I'm going to play a few, maybe a couple of minutes of this. Maybe. We'll see. But this is him. I think it is Kristen Welker, maybe. I don't know. I don't keep up with these people, but here's Chuck Schumer, the one of the poster children for uh, term limits. But here you go.
Working families worried about their futures, and that's going to be a significant change.
And obviously,
I think it will make a difference.
Obviously, there has been a lot of focus on President Biden's role in this. You were obviously in close contact with President Biden well before the public tuned into that debate that ultimately led to him stepping down. I want to play you a little bit of something you said last year. Take a look.
I talk to President Biden, regularly, or sometimes several times in a week, or usually several times in a week. His mental acuity is great. It's fine. It's as good as it's been over the years. All this right-wing propaganda that his mental acuity has declined is wrong.
Leader Schumer, what do you say to Americans who feel as though you and other top Democrats misled them about President Biden's mental acuity?
Look, we didn't, and let's look at President Biden. He's had an amazing record. The legislation we passed, one of the most significant groups of legislation since since Lyndon Johnson's Great Society, putting in 235 judges, a record. And he's a patriot. He's a great guy. And when he stepped down, he did it on his own because he thought it was better not only for the Democratic Party, for America. We should all salute him. We should all salute him.
Do you feel, as we have this conversation today, that President Biden could serve another 4 years had he?
If the man is even alive at 4 years, but the fact that he's still kind of doubling down, saying that they didn't cover anything up, and that all of this stuff, all of his accomplishments outdoes his mental acuity, even though we know it was people in the White House writing up all this stuff and passing all this junk or getting it written up, whatever. He wasn't making the decisions, trust me. Let's see. This is again Chuck Schumer. Let's just read through this. It says Kristen Welker interviews Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer on NBC's Meet the Press on January 5th. Welker, I want to play you a little bit of something you said last year. Take a look. The Schumer clip. It says, I talk to President Biden, regularly, sometimes several times in a week, or usually several times in a week. His mental acuity is great. It's fine. It's as good as it's been over the years. All this right-wing propaganda that his mental acuity has declined is wrong. This is Welker. Leader Schumer, what do you say to Americans who feel as though you and other top Democrats misled them about President Biden's mental acuity? Schumer, no, look, we didn't. And let's look at President Biden. He's had an amazing record. The legislation we passed, one of the most significant groups of legislation since the New Deal, since Lyndon Johnson's Great Society, putting in 235 judges, a record. And he's a patriot. He's a great guy. And when he stepped down, he did it on his own because he thought it was better not only for the Democratic Party, for America. We should all salute him. We should all salute him. But didn't Nancy Pelosi come out and say that she pushed him out? Oh my gosh. Let's read the conversation here. Okay. It says, after seeing both Biden and Schumer in action over the last 4 years, I've come to one strong belief. They both have one thing in common. They both lie like a rug. Oh my goodness. Never even got close to answering the question. What he did say was, I'm happy with what got done in Biden's name. The comparison to LBJ is fitting. The New Deal was one of the worst legislations ever passed. I don't think I've ever looked it up, but either way. If we eliminated the politicians from New York and California, we might have a functioning government. True, because that's usually where your liberal mindsets are. Anyway, I was asked in my Wizard of Oz in America analogy, if Trump was Dorothy, what were his ruby slippers? It was Elon Musk buying Twitter. That was the magic component that opened our eyes. True, if we hadn't found out about the Twitter files. Yeah. Question for readers. How can you tell if Chuck Schumer is lying? Answer, his lips are moving. Folks, Schumer, Flumer, he's just the front man, the carnival barker, if you will. Step back, turn off CNN and Morning Joe and even Maddow. Recognize the bigger play and acknowledge we were the little people, the munchkins in the Wizard of Oz in America. Pelosi is the wicked witch. Biden is the great fake and manipulated Oz. The deep state had us mesmerized with fables and pretty faces on news shows. This is, in my case, is such an indictment on how easily manipulated we were. Heck, why wouldn't they try more manipulation after we swallowed the J6 big lie? It's an insurrection. And stood in line to have unproven drugs shot into our bodies, COVID vax. Again, in my case, 3 times. I'm not going to keep reading this. Either way, don't let the media fool you. And it's kind of weird that all this stuff is coming out now, that he's been pushed out, Kamala lost. Now they feel totally free and open to bring all this up. And I'll link these in the description section so y'all can read this if you want. And let's look over here. This one's about like a 3-minute read. It says, who covered up Biden's decline and why? A president who wasn't there is exactly what Democrat Party activists wanted. Of course, because then he would be, if he was too smart for them, he would not allow them to get their agendas pushed through. So let's be real. It says, in discussing President Biden's cognitive decline, the president who wasn't there declarations on December 28th, Peggy Noonan writes, his family and friends, top White House staff, and other administration officials covered it up. She places the blame on them. The real scandal is that none of that would have mattered if the mainstream press hadn't been willing and eager accomplices to this shameful deception. Lauren LaSpaluto, I guess, Stamford, Connecticut. And Biden aides easily justify their deception because it gave them the power to promote their existentially important agenda. As in Douglas Adams' The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, the president is in this White House is very much a figurehead. His job is not to wield power, but to draw attention away from it. The real power has been located in the progressive aides and activists who surrounded Mr. Biden. A president who wasn't there is exactly what they wanted because they could do nearly anything they pleased with Mr. Biden's fatherly, presidential, decent, man of the people face covering the insanity of much of their program. That sounds about right. Mr. Biden has never had much of an agenda. With this decline, the chances of some of his normal instincts getting in the way of the progressive program were essentially zero. Ray Jorgensen, Santa Ana, California. What a wonderful qualifier. The adverb fully is in his hands of Miss Noonan. She writes that Mr. Biden wasn't fully up to the job and that he was too old to function as a fully engaged and hands-on president. The truth is that he wasn't up to the job at all, let alone fully. But it is in Miss Noonan's omission of the essential difference between the Woodrow Wilson and Joe Biden presidencies, their equivocation is most apparent. When Wilson ran for a second term and began serving that term, he was in full possession of his mental faculties. His stroke came later. Mr. Biden's cognitive decline, preceded his presidency and his taking office and was known to the entire Democratic contingent. So why the hell would they let him in there? It says Helene L. Smith, New York. I watched the final press conference of Ronald Reagan's presidency at the link Miss Noonan provides. The contrast with Mr. Biden is dramatic, but more notable and concerning is the contrast between the statesman Reagan and the impetuous man who was and soon will become president. Richard D. Bruhlman, MD, Allison Park, PA. As aging residents go, or presidents go, there's no comparison between the mental acuity, vim, and vigor of Reagan and that of Mr. Biden, as further testimony to Miss Noonan's claim that Reagan was in command of his mental faculties. I note that his official biographer, Edward Morris, agreed. During the 1980s, I worked in both the White House speech writing office and as Morris's research assistant on Dutch, his Reagan biography. Morris, who had many years of unprecedented access to the president, his family, and the White House staff, and who famously found Reagan to be an enigma, said many times he saw no signs of Alzheimer's disease while the president was in the White House. Kimberly Timmons Gibson of Washington. Let's see. So these are opinion letters. Let's see what the comments have to say really quick, and then we'll be done. Oh, these are long. Okay. Our country's survival depends on surfacing and electing younger candidates to move forward or move ahead of the rest of the world in determining the direction of our country and the world. The old guys in all three branches of our government must step away and let leaders in their 50s solve the new problems we face. Example, we must conclude on the right approach to our planet's climate issue rather than argue whether the warming temperatures and increase in violent weather is real. Still covering up for Reagan after 40 years, I knew Mayo Clinic doctors who treated him. His mental faculties were slipping already late in his first term, and doctors had to decide whether the removal of a clot in his brain was too high risk. Ultimately, they had no choice. A waste of time, money, and thought to indulge in anything related to him and his. It's over. It's finally about over. Oh, talking about this. Anyway, it was plain to anyone who looked that he was in decline and not able to do the job. Anyone who said so out loud was demonized by the same people who are now crying foul. Oh, yeah, true. Anyway, I don't want to keep reading all that. It's kind of boring. But yes, so I will link these in there. Y'all can read through it. Even hopefully it'll put that link for the president who wasn't there. That's another thing I want to read about Peggy Noonan. But anyway, we know he was really bad off and they covered it up until they couldn't do it anymore. And now they feel so free and emboldened. I know some of them are still holding out, but they feel emboldened to bring all this stuff up. But yeah, we'll talk to y'all later. Have a great afternoon. See y'all around. Bye.